Welcome to the Social Media Church podcast. I'm Neil Smith, joined by my friend Angie White. Angie, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, I'm so excited. I was just listening to this podcast, just like getting excited for it. And I was like, this is going to be so much fun. So thank you
I
for
love it. I love it. It's so good to have you on. And Angie and I met years back when you were in New York City, and it has been fun to follow your journey through the years and all that you have done and are doing. And so for those that aren't familiar with you, can you share a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, definitely. I'm a social media manager currently at the Rock Church in San Diego, specifically for our senior pastor, Miles McPherson. And that's what I currently doing, social media. I'm also helping out with our video team a little bit and just some like marketing projects as well. But social media is my main focus there.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. And so, how did you get into social media marketing? What was that pathway to doing this?
Yeah, so this is actually it's a part of my testimony. So I didn't grow up going to church. I think I went a few times with my mom, but she never forced me to go with her. And so I knew about Jesus, I knew about God, but didn't have a relationship with him. So after I graduated high school, that was a really hard transition into college. I was really alone. I was super shy, didn't know how to make friends. And I was ready for something different in my life than what I was doing, which was like the party scene and everything. So I actually found this app. I tried looking at it the other day and I couldn't find it. But it is a prayer app, and it was like a social media platform where you could post prayer requests and then you could look at prayer requests around the world.
Hmm.
And it's not just for Christians, it was all different types of religions. And it was really, really cool. And that was my first time experiencing community was on this app. And so it was awesome. And it had me going back. And then I went on Twitter and went and followed some Christian accounts. And it just was feeding me little by little. And it got me to this place where I'm like, I want more of this. I want this in person. I think I'm ready. And so that's when I started going to the church that I'm currently at now. And I went to our college ministry, and we didn't have a social media account. So I asked our college pastor, can we start an Instagram account? He was like, yeah, go for it. And I was
I
like,
love it.
oh, like me? And so I started volunteering, running our college ministry account and young adults account for, I think, 3 years while going to college. And then through that, I got offered a job at my church doing social media for the church, which I thought was crazy and was not on my radar, not anything I was planning for like my education and career path. But it's worked out. It's been amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think there's two lessons here that I think are beneficial for our listeners. One is, you know what, just empower somebody when it comes to social media. So if you're in a place where you're like, I don't know who's going to do social media. Somebody's like, we should have social media. Just say, okay, then great, you're in charge. And it's can be messy sometimes, but I do think empowering others also gives them the opportunity. And those that want to get into this, because some people are like, how do I get into social media marketing? Well, just start doing it. Don't wait till you have the keys. You've got your own social media platforms, or create a social media platform and start doing it. You don't have to wait for somebody to always empower you. It doesn't mean you need to just go create an account for your church without permission, but it does mean you can start doing it, whether it's on your personal account or you just even create some kind of like local brand or something. And so I think I love how you took that initiative and just jumped right in, and you've seen, I think such unique success. Angie, you did prior to your current role, you were doing social media at Saddleback Church. Can you talk about what you did there and maybe even some of the differences between the two?
Yeah, gosh, such a blessing. So I was at Saddleback Church. I came on during COVID, so end of 2020. Um, Started as social media manager. I think it was originally going to be like a digital marketing role, but
Yeah.
when I talked with my then manager, he was like, man, I feel like your giftings are more here. And so they actually pivoted the role a bit, which was really awesome. And so I managed social media for the church's global account. So
Okay.
the Saddleback Church handles. So I was Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn. We started a TikTok while I was there. So that was huge, and it was really intimidating, really,
Yeah.
really intimidating. But the only reason why I stepped up to it is because there were just so many encouraging voices being like, we believe you, you can do this, you're here for a reason. And I was like, okay, I guess I got this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was, I mean, when you work for a church with that big of a platform, especially under Pastor Rick Warren,
Yeah.
you can feel it. When I logged into those accounts, I could feel the weight of that
Yeah.
platform, and the respect that came with it and the responsibility.
Yes.
So for myself, everything was so prayerful. Every post, every caption, every message, because someone could take it, screenshot it, and be like, Rick Warren's church is saying this. And
Yeah.
so you take on the voice of the church and for your senior pastor. And so that was a huge honor. But I also wanted to make sure that we had set up really strong processes in place. So when we posted something, it was reflective of the church, of our pastor, and just as a congregation. And so that was something that was new. Like it took a bit longer to post like a funny meme or something,
Yes.
or a certain teach clip. Like it took a little bit longer to get those things up, for good reason. And so that was different because I'm an activator. I'm very much like, tell me
Yeah.
what to do, I'll go. And so I had to get used to that process, but also understand how important it was. That wasn't just protecting the church and pastor, but me as well, and our congregation. And so that was new, something I had to learn. And then on top of that, at the time when I was there, we had 14 campuses in California for international. So I was also responsible for supporting those campus social media channels. And they all had Instagram and Facebook. And so that was huge because the church I was at before that only had 5 campuses,
Yeah.
which is still a lot.
Yes.
So that was a big transition, is working with all those volunteers. And a lot of those campus accounts were ran by the campus pastor or the campus admin. And so learning how to work with their schedule, help them not feel overwhelmed as well. So that was a big challenge for me that I had to learn, is supporting all of those campuses. And then you're also representing a church that's international as well. So we wanted to make sure that we were representing all cultures, all types of people that were within our church. And so that was really fun. But those are the big ones that come to mind as far as differences go.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. It's a lot of learning in that process, and obviously unique, that experience as you shift now from basically a corporate brand to a personal brand with Pastor Miles, and maybe even those aren't language. It's not a language we use in the church, not as a personal brand, but what strategically, how do you shift your strategy, and what are you seeing as the biggest differences between church accounts and the pastor's personal accounts as you're managing those?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I personally really love managing personal accounts because there
Yeah.
is a bit more freedom. And then, especially because you work directly most of the time with the person that you're managing the account for. And so you really get to, how I saw it was, I'm an extension of my pastor on social media.
Yes.
He would send this message or he would post this, he would comment back, but he's, out here at the speaking event or with his family. And so it's really cool because I see it as being an extension of who our pastor is. And that's a huge blessing. So seeing it through that lens versus with the church, there's a lot of how are we getting people connected to this church? How are we letting them know what's going on? What are some serving opportunities? We're sharing testimonies. Like it's a really broad story that you're telling.
Yeah.
Whereas with the personal account, it's a really specific story. It's a specific voice, a person. And I feel like you can get really personal as well as far as community engagement goes. And then just also hearing and reading the testimonies that people share, like this clip really impacted my life, and being able to forward that to him directly is really awesome. And so, but as far as strategy goes, I feel like it does vary, personal accounts, personal account. But for Pastor Miles, there's a ton of freedom. So, we'll be at an event, I'll be recording like a fun video, and I just can go ahead and post it. And how, whatever music I put on it, there's a ton of
Yeah.
choice there because we work so closely. So I can move a lot faster. And so it allows more flexibility. If there's a trend, we can jump on it quicker. And there's just more communication as well. So I think definitely there's more flexibility in posting, a bit more freedom in some areas, and then it's just fun. You can get really creative.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I think too, what I have experienced, Angie, I'm curious if you're seeing the same thing, but is that people connect to people that are more naturally than they connect to organizations. And so you're going to have just natural virality more significantly in a personal account than a corporate account. And so I think there's even just a uniqueness to that personal connection. That said, I think it's more challenging as a an individual to manage a personal account.
Hey guys, it's Nils, and I'm interrupting this podcast episode to highlight one of our sponsors. This sponsor is actually one of my companies, Amplify Social Media, where I'm the founder and CEO. And for years, we've been helping ministries and churches grow their message and amplify their message through social media done for them. And so as a consultant, one of the things that I found is that a lot of times ministries that have a hard time with capacity to fully do everything that they want to do on social media. So we built a team to help. We can help put your sermons on YouTube and podcasts and create social media clips and graphics and videos and all the things that you need to do with ads and even responding, helping you manage your inbox and your comments and messages. Our team is here to help. So if you want help amplifying your social media presence, reach out to our team, go to amplifysocial.media, and we would love to help. We will hopefully talk to you soon. Let's get back to the episode.
To be thinking like that individual and not, I think sometimes the corporate voice is actually a little easier to manage. And so there's complexities, I think, on all sides. But I do think that pastors often are like, I don't want to be on social media. I don't want to have a personal brand. I don't want to do that. I don't have time for this. Well, one, you can create time by hiring somebody like you that can manage it for you, because that investment has significant return. I know I was just talking to the team at Transformation Church recently, and Mike Todd, I think there's 5 or 6 people on Pastor Mike's accounts, and there's, I think some of you are like, that's excessive. That's all about building it's growing the church, and it's an investment in the church, understanding that Pastor Mike's accounts are, growing those and investing in those as a church is seeing significant fruits from a ministry impact standpoint. And so it is different. It is unique. And I think it is complexity, and there's a tension to manage with egos and, and why are you building this? Are you building your kingdom or God's kingdom? But I do think by not leaning into that personal brand, I think you're missing out on the opportunity to connect with people because people want to connect to their pastor. And so often that connection to a pastor becomes the front door into the community with the congregation. So I love hearing that Rock Church and that Pastor Miles is investing in it, and by essentially investing in empowering you to manage those accounts. Angie, I'm curious, where are you seeing the best in this season? And as you're focusing on Pastor Miles' social media ministry, where are you seeing the best ROI, maybe even platform-wise, or just your time being invested into content creation or comment management? Where's the ROI right now for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, what you said about Mike Todd's team, it's really comforting to hear they have that many people.
Yeah.
I look at like Craig Rochelle, at those accounts. I'm like, man, I wonder like how this is set up, because it's just me behind his. And so it's true. Like the more you invest into something, the more you're going to see fruit from it.
Absolutely.
And so I'm currently in the process of bringing on volunteers to help with Pastor Miles's social and just building that team. So I love that you mentioned that. But so for where we're seeing the biggest ROI, I think it's really reflective of who Pastor Miles is by nature. Yeah. He's an evangelist. He loves talking to strangers. You can't bring him anywhere without him making multiple friends. It's who he is.
Yeah.
And God wired him that way. And so for his content, we'll post something like, I don't do this as much now, but I used to post like scriptures or some really deep teach clip videos, that's really diving into really specific spiritual practices. And people appreciate those. But what we saw the biggest so far is when he's covering topical topics. So things that can be understood by a non-believer. And he uses language that isn't intimidating by someone who's never been to church. And so that's where I'm seeing tons of engagement, are those types, specifically video clips of him talking about marriage or forgiveness, success in life. And people are coming across those, and it doesn't sound Christian-y. So I think they're hanging out and watching. And then they're following him and then finding out that he's a pastor, so that's the content that I'm really trying to push more out on his platforms right now. And that's something where I'm like, for him, I'm like, you don't have to worry about that. I'll cover that. You post the personal photos, the with your family and friends so people can get to know you on a personal level. So we kind of have our bases covered right now, but that's where I'm seeing the most. We recently had a clip that went, pretty crazy in engagement, has 2 million views, brought in about 10,000 followers like within a month.
Wow.
And he's talking about marriage. Yeah. And obviously there's people in the comments like, I disagree. I don't know about this. There's other people in the comments like, wow, I never thought about this perspective before. Nonetheless, it's reaching people. Yes. And it's giving them an opportunity to learn. And then the hope is that they'll follow him, and then we'll be sharing more and more content. And they're like, oh, this is all centered around the Bible and Jesus. Like, let me give this a try. So that is the heart of our strategy. And that's where we're seeing the most as far as engagement comes in.
That's awesome. And is there a plot? Like, I'm curious, what platform is that? Instagram or is that TikTok? Where are you seeing the growth?
Yeah, that's Instagram, and that's his main focus. He naturally opens Instagram up when he goes on social media, so that's our really big focus. We're still maintaining Facebook and Twitter, but Instagram for sure is going to be our widest reach.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to point out that, and this is what, with Pastor Mike's team too, Transformation, they're telling me Instagram, that TikTok is where they're seeing the biggest growth right now. But Instagram continues to be where they're seeing the most consistent growth. And I think the perspective is often that meta platforms, Facebook and Instagram, it's pay to play, but that's not the case. You can still go viral on Instagram with good, creative, intentional content, especially with Reels today, from what I'm experiencing and seeing. Angie, you mentioned that you got some negative comments in that post, and that's going to come with going viral. And so many pastors that I talk to, they're like, I want to go viral. How do I want to reach 2 million people. But then they get upset when they get the haters. And I'm sure it's Saddleback too. You got the trolls entered the comments. How do you handle that as you're expanding the reach? Because this isn't going to diminish. This is only going to increase as God continues to expand your platform within these platforms.
Yeah. So that was probably the most, I learned that the most at Saddleback, I would say. Because it's hard. This is a church that you love, a pastor that you love, and to read these comments, especially during COVID, everyone had, in the election season, everyone had different opinions. It was taking a toll on people differently. And people were on social media. That's where they were vocalizing and really processing. So you saw a lot of negative comments. For a while, I would respond to a couple of them and just say, thank you for sharing. We appreciate that you feel comfortable sharing here. And that's it. We don't need to jump into a conversation. We want people to feel like it's safe for them to vocalize how they're feeling. But it's when the comment becomes hateful and they're saying something hateful towards the church and towards the pastor. That's where I have the 3-strike rule. Like, if they comment 3 times, they're not here to engage. They're not here to learn and grow. They're really here to just tear other people down. So I don't believe in blocking the church. I just believe in blocking them to be able to comment on something. And then just hiding their comments as well. And then if I feel, sometimes I'd even feel led to send them a message and just let them know, like, hey, we see because sometimes people just want to be seen.
Yes.
I'd reach out, hey, we see you. We hear that you're frustrated. We have a pastor on call that would love to chat with you if you need to just air some things out, get encouragement, talk to people. I think a couple people took those. Jay Cranda and his team, I actually would be like, hey, can you guys do this? So being able to have a pastor on call who is able to emotionally manage those situations, I would say it's a huge win to be able to pass some of those people. And you'll find that a majority of them never respond and they don't want help. They're just here to tear people down. So when you realize that that's their intention and it's not specifically about your church or specifically about your pastor, it's easier to kind of like put up not allow it to affect you personally and deeper than it needs to be. So that was huge. And then especially if it becomes divisive in the comments, that's when I'll delete those because it becomes distracting. People aren't looking at the content anymore. They're looking at the comments. Yes. So that's a big thing. But I think it's really helpful in knowing that there's a person behind these words. There's a person behind this comment. Even if they're attacking you, they're attacking you for a reason. Something happened in their life where this is how they want to spend their time. And that's heartbreaking to know that. So I think when we can see it through that perspective, it's less about like, I'm getting hate and more like there's someone hurting on the other side of that. And then pray through, do I reach out to them and start a conversation? do we hide their comments for now? I think it should vary church to church, but I definitely don't believe in just blocking someone and, but when they become excessive, that's hard. Like last night, commenting Pastor Miles on his last post, I was like, oh, there's 70 negative comments on this one post. And so you want to pay attention. If there's multiple comments saying the same thing, you also want to be like, oh, is there something here I need to be aware of? Or is this just like really differing opinions right now? But I think it's good to be aware of that. And then also that person's on to the next post after leaving a negative comment on while you're still thinking about them. So that's kind of what I've learned during my time, and it's helped me.
That's so good. It's a hard to manage. It could take all of your time to navigate that. And honestly, like I think about, even if you engage a volunteer to help manage that, that's really deflating on the volunteer, because you get beat up by some of these trolls, and they always talk about social media, don't feed the trolls. But at the end of the day, these are also people, hurt people. And I think these people, I think you say it so well from such a pastoral heart. We want to care for these people, and I love that you move that conversation to the DMs, and try to like, can we help you? Can we hear you? And I think sometimes that people just want to be heard too, and so I think to give them that ability to be heard. But then I think I think the biggest mistake that I see churches making and ministries making is engaging the trolls, and that has never led to anything productive that I've experienced, publicly engaging a troll, because that really empowers that behavior in a pretty negative way. Now, the other side, practically, that is part of the virality, cycle, is comments drive impressions. And so when you get a bunch of haters commenting, they're actually helping you reach more people with your post. And so while it does get distracting in the comment section, it is actually helping your content to reach more people. And so it's a tough one to manage. I think there's no perfect solution, but Angie, your advice is so good for churches that are navigating that, because this is part of the growth cycle of sometimes when you get what you're praying for, it's not exactly everything that you expected it to be. It comes with some new and unique challenges that you have to process through. I'm curious, Angie, let's get into your toolkit a little bit. And so I'm curious, what, are you using just your smartphone? Are you using a camera? Are you using certain like Sprout Social? What kind of software, hardware are you using to manage the social media accounts?
Yeah, so I personally love exploring new platforms, new apps. I always like trying new things that are coming out and just learning from other people and what they're trying, giving it a go. And also, I feel like it changes season to season, but I've actually pretty much stayed on the same apps for the past year, I would say. And so at Saddleback, we use a specific social media management platform. At The Rock, there's a different. So it's also that as well. But so currently I'm using Sprout Social, and that I'm huge in analytics. I love digging in, being like, why was there a peak? Why was there a drop off? Where was this coming from? What was about this post? So Sprout Social, I think, is great for analytics. I personally can manage it pretty quickly and like navigate it pretty quickly through Sprout. Another one of our social media managers at our church uses Later. So I also have access to Later on desktop, which I also love. I think it's really nice to look at. Sprout is very, I feel like Sprout's looks like Spotify, and then Later looks like Apple Music.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I think it's really about preference, but I go kind of back and forth because sometimes they show you different things that are different perspectives of your analytics. So that's what we're currently using. And then I love working on my phone. So the social media manager I just mentioned, she edits everything on her laptop. And I love editing on my phone, especially on the go. I'm chasing Pastor Miles at an event. So I have to be on my phone. So currently I'm using a video app. I don't know if you pronounce it Villo, but it's BLLO.
Okay. I've never heard of it.
It's a video editing app. I love it. There's just tons of options and ways you can edit things. I also have CapCut, which I know is pretty popular for TikTok. So sometimes I use it randomly. I don't really have a reason. I don't know. Sometimes I use it and sometimes I don't. But mostly Villo is the biggest thing. Okay. And then the other one that I use, I would say on a daily basis, is Studio, which is like a graphic design app. It used to be called Over.
Okay.
And then I think GoDaddy bought it and it was called GoDaddy Studio. Now it's just called Studio. So that's what I use for creating graphics on the go, or like real cover photos. Or if I need to edit a photo or something like that, I can, cut up a photo in there, which is really helpful. So yeah, and then for editing photos, I don't use filters anymore. I just kind of use the brightness levels on iPhone, and then I shoot everything on my iPhone.
Okay.
And that's strategic as well. Like we want Pastor's videos. He's, like you said, it's a personal account. We want it to feel personal. We don't want it to feel overproduced. At Saddleback, I had a video team that used really nice cameras to shoot a lot of our content, and that was also intentional. So yeah, iPhone, it's quick, it's easy, and it works for what we're trying to do in our strategy.
Yeah. And are you going to upgrade to the iPhone 15? Tech a little bit.
I want to. I actually have. I think I have the 13.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would like to, but I'm like, either I get a Disneyland Magic Key Pass, or a new iPhone.
It's a tough debate right there.
Yeah, we'll see what I do.
Yeah, that's funny. That's awesome. As you look to the future, Angie, you look at some of the trends that are happening in the world of social media. Is there anything that you see in the future that you get excited about, or you're starting to experiment with that you think is going to maybe be the next kind of future of social media for ministry?
Let's see. I feel like trends, it's like it kind of goes back and forth, right? Like we're all futuristic and then we like the nostalgic. And so right now I'm seeing a lot of the more like nostalgic types of things, like just posting raw photos on social or on TikTok. I feel like you can get really vulnerable with your audience. You don't have to be, wearing makeup or all dressed up, and you can just get really real. And I think that's resonating, especially with our Gen Z community as well. Like they just want raw and realness. And so as ministry, sometimes we don't have to overcomplicate it. We don't have to have a huge production or a nice background set up. Sometimes they just want to hear from us directly and hear from our people and our pastors on staff. And I think it's a great opportunity to just leverage that personal connection that they're looking for. And what I'm seeing trending on social media as well is just being real, raw, not overproduced. Don't overthink it. Yeah. And that's something that I'm currently seeing right now that I really like, that I would like to see more ministries and churches tapping into. Yeah. As far as like future goes, I'm not quite sure. I think that's what I love about social media. I know some people hate it, but like you never know what's going to be trending. Like, so I was at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas earlier this year, and they were talking about AI, and this was new on the scene for majority of the population. Yeah. And they were making predictions about how much AI would be used at the end of the year, and people are like, "That's crazy! Like, no, we don't think so." Yeah. Like now it's everywhere, and so and that's what I love is I'm like, you just never know what's going to come in the next year. Yeah. But I think for me, I love just being ready and being prepared. Like whatever it is, like let's learn it, let's figure it out. And I've used ChatGPT to write many captions before. So I think there's a lot that I think as churches and ministries, we can't be afraid of trends. And I think we have to learn, like, there's a purpose that God wants to use for this new technology or what's happening. And when we can partner with it, we can expand the gospel in such creative ways. And I think it's really exciting for me to think about. Yeah, and I think I love that perspective, because AI in many ways isn't going to disrupt what we do. It's going to enhance, I think, the opportunities that we have on these platforms. And there is so much unique opportunity. And I think in some ways it's just staying ready is probably the biggest opportunity we have. And I think we saw even this year of like threads come and kind of threads come and go to where it's like, this is the next big thing. And it's like, never mind. And so you just, and I remember when Community, I think it's or whatever the app that during the pandemic, that everybody jumped, or Clubhouse, there it is. And then it's like, well, they kind of integrated into Twitter or now X, but it's still never fully caught on like it seemed to be the path it was heading down. So we just don't know where so many things are going. It's all guesses. But I think it's and I think right now the practical side is
it's short form vertical video. It's basically TikTok Reels. Facebook Reels seems like it's the most significant trend right now, and probably going to continue down that trend. But who knows what other opportunities might pop up? And I think the key is for us to stay ready and to adapt and adjust. And it's so good. Angie, as you think about other church leaders, and as you think about even your early days of getting started, any other advice that you would share? You've shared so much gold of like the nuggets of your mindset, your perspective, your tools. But any other just advice that you would have to somebody that's really just getting started and wanting to really prioritize social media, but unsure where to even start?
Yeah, I think we have such a unique opportunity when we're in church and in ministry, because when you have people who are trying to start their careers in businesses, they want the relationships and the experience, and they want to go on to the next thing. And for church and ministry, a lot of times when people come and they want to serve and volunteer, they're looking for community, they're looking for connection. A lot of time they're looking to be discipled. And so if someone's coming and like, I would love to help with social media, yes, they can help with your church's social media, but it's also such a great discipleship opportunity as well. And what I learned the most was from one of my mentors and good friends, Mingo Palacios.
Yeah.
He really brought me in the scene like early, when I first started ministry, like in 2015 for myself. And the biggest thing that he did that I feel like I just skyrocketed was he believed in me. And he believed in me before I had these numbers and analytics on social media to prove what I can do. He believed in me before I got a job offer from Saddleback Church. He believed in me before I believed in myself. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just believing in someone and telling them that they're capable of doing it. And that is just the greatest way that you can water a creative's mind and just their giftings as well. And giving them opportunity to fail. That's another thing Mingo did. He would bring me and some of my friends on these trips, and we would set up when he was doing the Purpose Driven podcast. And we didn't know what we were doing. And he was like, let's go to this conference and let's do a podcast. So we're like, what's happening? That's how we met you in New York.
Yeah.
We're like, we woke up that day, we met you, and that event that he did, we all woke up, we're like, so what are we doing today? And he was like, I don't know, let's figure it out. And really created a confidence in us that we don't know what today holds. We don't know this, all the ins and outs of this event or this project, but we have a leader that believes in us and that's going to figure it out with us. And so I would say, like, you don't have to know all the things. If you tell the person, your volunteer or your social media coordinator, like, hey, I'm not sure about that trend, let's figure it out together. I think that's the greatest thing, because it empowers them to want to learn with you. And it's a great discipleship as well, discipleship principle, to just be learning together, doing the thing together. And then definitely just constant feedback as well. This did really great. Hey, I love when you posted that video. I feel like it was a great reflection of our church. There was energy, people were smiling. Or, hey, that graphic, it was great. I don't know that it was the best use of our church's voice. Here's what I would do differently. So I think having that constant feedback is really, really helpful, because that's what helps someone continue to learn and also know what your expectations are and learn more about the church as well. And then the biggest one is what I learned at Saddleback is when God calls that person on to the next thing, being able to celebrate where they're going next and preparing them for that transition. Celebrating them on the way out is the biggest thing, because in social media, I feel like people move through roles so quickly and things move really quickly that they may not be at your church or ministry doing social for very long. And so when they're there, investing in them, encouraging them, believing in them, and then when God calls them next thing, just really celebrating them on the way out, because you never know, you might come back and they might come back and work for you again. That's my current story. And whatever their fruit goes on to the next season, that's your fruit as well. And what a huge win and celebration that they get to carry that on. So those are the top things that come to mind. And those things, even though, I'm not working with Mingo directly anymore, a lot of the stuff I learned from him is still in my mind today. And so also knowing how you encourage your people, they will carry that on for the rest of their life. And that's such a gift and a great opportunity to invest in a creative.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm reminded of there's a social media influencer, Sean Cannell, who's been here on the podcast. He leads a YouTube channel, or it's called content company called Think Media. But he started, his story is that his youth pastor empowered him to do the youth video news, 16, 17 years ago. And then that led to him basically being the video guy at the church, which led to him, doing different things and starting a YouTube channel and now he's got 2 million people on his YouTube channel, and he helps thousands of creators build their YouTube influence, and it was because a youth pastor empowered him, and I think there's so many people that we can raise up to have a unique ministry and platform through our churches. I mean, I would love to see churches basically become content hubs where we have studios in our churches and places for people to record podcasts and film videos, even for their personal social media accounts that basically become ministry platforms for them on their personal brands. And I love how you were empowered, and now how you're even taking the empowerment that you have and empowering others in the learnings that you have. And I was going to wrap up with that, but I've got another question that I want to ask you about in relation to that. Is where are you learning? Who are you paying attention to? What resources do you lean into? Where do you learn to find the trends that you're going to follow, or to find new opportunities to do? Because you're, in many ways, in this space, you're leading the way. There's not a whole lot of models of personal pastor brands and ministries to follow. So where are you learning?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love learning about social media. So I have 2 different answers. One of them is learning for myself and my own inspiration. I love looking at other brands do it well, like Nike. And Nike itself has tons of different brands underneath them as well, like Nike Run, Nike Women. So I love looking at what they're doing and how are they telling stories. And then thinking through other brands that the demographic we're trying to reach, what brands are they looking at? What brands are they following on social media and connecting with, and looking at them as well. Another one is Impact as well. Impact on social media. I think they do a great job with their graphics and communicating information, whether you believe their messaging or not. They do a really good job as far as design goes and sharing tons of information that doesn't feel text heavy. So I try to look at accounts that aren't a church connected to a church, aren't a ministry, aren't necessarily Christian, because there are some great creatives in the secular world that we can learn from, and that are most of the time setting the trends. And so I like looking at Instagram and just finding different brands that have 1 million followers, tons of engagement, because it's for a reason. People like their content, and what can we learn from them? So that's for myself. I also love Pinterest, and getting just inspiration from what I'm seeing on Pinterest as well. And then for social media management platforms like Later, Sprout, Hootsuite, all the above, they all have newsletters so I go and just put my email in, and their newsletter drops in my email every week. So I'm always reading those and checking those when I start my workday. And, they do the work for you. They go find the trends. And then I love podcasts. You can listen to far. So your podcast, I also listen to secular social media podcasts, and then just like lifestyle podcasts as well, because they're also engaging people in a way that I think as churches we can learn from, that lifestyle type of content.
For sure.
And then so the other answer is I have to learn and stay on top of church trends and what other pastors and big church accounts are posting, because I have Pastor Miles and leadership, or at the time Saddleback, that's who they're looking at. And so most of the time that's who they're getting inspiration from. Like, oh, I saw Mike Todd posted this thing. Can we do something like that? So I want to make sure I'm staying on top of what are these pastors and churches. Rich Wilkerson Jr. is another one. Like, he's been inspiring me a lot with his content recently. So I'm looking at their accounts, seeing what are they doing, and how can it translate into our content. I don't like to copy. I like to get inspiration. But I want to make sure, because when I hear from leadership, or they send me a reel, or church leadership, and they're like, hey, we like this, can we do it? I want to know what it is, So I think we need to be able to learn from what our leadership's looking at and wanting, because a lot of time they're great ideas. What are other churches doing? But also, what are some secular brands doing? Some non-churched accounts, what are they doing? Because they have millions of followers for a reason, and they're reaching a demographic that we also want to reach, but for a different, for a different purpose. So yeah, I love, for me personally, I also love Instagram and just searching and finding new accounts.
I love it. And I think just being hungry to learn and paying attention and not being exclusive to one lane of learning and look at what can we pull from this and not copy from this, but learn from with this strategy. And so it really is a unique moment of education. Opportunities are endless. And we couldn't listen to every podcast we'd ever want to, or listen to every audiobook or watch every YouTube video that we wanted to. But I think being, finding some of those key places to learn, but also not being too, I find myself, I'm a big Gary Vaynerchuk fan, but I'll find myself where I'm just like consuming just one person. And I'm like, no, I need to diversify where I'm learning and getting insights from. And so I think it's a really valuable insight as to where you're looking. And I do think there's so much value to look at secular brands and some of the things that they're doing that we can adapt and learn from a ministry and apply to ministry context. Angie, this has been so helpful. So many great nuggets. I appreciate so much of what you do, and I hope you'll tell Pastor Miles hi for me. I was just thinking I got to text him after this and just tell him he did such a great job rehiring you, and it's such a great move. I can't wait to see what you do with the ministry that you're being empowered with today. And side note, I'm eager to see when Pastor Miles launches his podcast, because I got to envision there's got to be a podcast coming, because the Pastor Miles podcast is going to be exceptional with the network and the conversations that he is already having, making those more public. And he's a great interviewer, as I've seen him do through the years. But for those that want to connect with you and follow you online, or where can people connect with you online?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram, and I'm trying to currently figure out, this is another conversation we'll probably have, is like personal account and then like creative business account. And I think there's purpose for having both as one and sometimes separating. I'm trying to figure it out right now. But my personal Instagram is Angie Succo, AngieSucco. That's my middle name. I'd love to connect. I love connecting with other churches, especially small churches as well, that are like, we can't hire a social media person. Please. So Instagram, DMs. I'm honestly quicker on my DMs than I am text or email. And then, my email is angiewhitecreative@gmail.com. That's my personal. And I just want to thank you so much for having me. I was just thinking about whenever I go someplace or meet new creatives and your name gets brought up, and I'm like, everybody knows Nils. And I think it's just a reflection of your connectiveness. It shows how trustworthy you are and how much people love you and respect you. And I think it's just so cool how you really connect all of us, in this space. And I just love what you do. Thank you for being diligent and committed to this podcast, and for bringing people on like me. It's just, I'm learning too, as I'm just talking to and hearing your feedback. So thank you I love your ministry. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you so much. That means a ton to me. And we're about 10 years in to this podcast. And one of the things that I always say that I, honestly, the biggest reason I do this podcast is an excuse to talk to people like you and to reach out. As I reach out, I was like, I want to catch up, but let's just record it so other people can listen. And so the benefit this selfishly brought me is, in some ways I look forward to hearing the feedback from this episode, but this was so encouraging and refreshing to me, and I appreciate those words. But I say that, so much of what I have been privileged to do and you're doing right now is we learn out loud. And so sometimes when we process what we're learning, it kind of reminds us like, oh yeah, I am learning that, or I didn't even realize it, or it's giving a framework to what I'm doing, and I need to repeat, or I forgot that I used to do that, and why did I stop doing that again? And so it's a good exercise for us to learn out loud and teach others because it actually helps us refine what we're doing. And so it's an exercise that I would encourage all leaders to do, is find even a way to teach, even if it's just one other person, what it is you're learning, what it is you're doing, because that's going to not just add value to them, that actually adds value to yourself as a leader. But Angie, thank you for leading the way. Thank you for pioneering the ministries that you have to this point, and I can't wait to see what's ahead for you. And so I hope everyone that's listening to this will go give you a follow on Instagram, connect with you, and take you up on that offer to DM you any questions that you have. And I think you'll find Angie to be so responsive and available, and what a gift that is to the Big C Church to have leaders in your position that are busy but available to be able to help along the way. And I want to encourage everyone, if you haven't already, go to socialmedia.church. Make sure you subscribe to our email newsletter, and you get updates on all of our new podcasts. But on the website, we'll have a link to Angie's social media and her email that she shared here as for easy access if you missed that. And so everything will be there at socialmedia.church. So go check that out. And yeah, we appreciate you listening, and we will talk to you again on the next episode. Thanks, everyone.